you want my speech to be short as well? Because the book says everything. So good morning to all of you. Apologies for being 14 minutes late. The speech read by Undersecretary Luna, I think, was brief, representing our Secretary of National Defense, who I understand is leaving for Russia. Leaving for Russia or studying the budget? Practicing the budget. No, the budget deliberations are suspended until the week after next. But I'm very grateful that Undersecretary Cardozo Luna is here today to represent the defense establishment. And of course, my dear, dear good friend, a brilliant government worker who edited the book, Glo, where is Glo? She was here early, yes. Undersecretary Gloria Mercado of the Cabinet Secretary's Office, indefatigable worker at the National Defense College, the Development Academy of the Philippines, brilliant, and I could not do the book without her. Of course, it was my commandant's paper. And Chippy, he was the mayor of our class, class 27, in 1992. It dates us. Yes, it dates us. They will compute. So Rear Admiral Roberto Eschocco and Brigadier General Viaje. Let me see, I have to wear my glasses. Hindi na sana ako magkasalamin kasi naka-Facebook Live eh. Diba? Diba? So, Brigadier General Archimedes Viaje is also here. Dean Atienza met me earlier, yes. And General Llano is also here. General Llano, yes, you're the head of our Defense Center of Excellence. It's already established, yes. All our diplomatic corps, friends from the diplomatic corps, your excellencies, our officials of the National Defense College of the Philippines, and all the workers in government. I saw Dale and many others. I can't mention all of you today. How do I start? There's just so much happening in our country and so much happening in the Senate. First, what's keeping us busy is the annual national budget, as you know. And we are in the midst of not compromising. The Senate has no problem because we agree with the executive and the president's budget that it should be a cash-based budget to instill fiscal discipline among the agencies of government. There may be some challenges now in implementing that, but we'll see what happens when Congress resumes on August 28th. In the meantime, that is not your immediate concern because no matter what, the defense establishment will get its due share, perhaps even more, based on its needs and what it presented to DBM in the NEP. So that's what's been keeping us really busy and keeping late at night. And while I know the needs of the academic institutions, the ever-evolving needs of the defense establishment to beef up our defense of our marine environment, the defense internally as well, the defense of our airspace, that's always in need. So before I even read my speech, I would like to request the defense establishment to give me a wish list of all the needs if we are to be at par in our airspace, in the maritime environment, to protect us from external, internal threats, and to protect us amidst challenges of natural hazards and climate, which we cannot avoid, but we can actually reduce. And that is what my message today is all about. And before I even read my message, I would like to ask each and every one of you to please give away the book as much as you can to those who may be interested, and even those who don't, so that they can be educated, informed, and use it to operationalize it. And I would love to have criticisms because it's far from perfect. Remember, it's a paper. A paper is a paper. There's always new knowledge or missed knowledge. And even if did I get best thesis? Yusek Law? Ikaw yata nag-grade eh. Okay. Even if it's best thesis, to me, it's not good enough. That's how I am as a student. I'm always a perennial student, and I learn much more from my colleagues, from my classmates. I always think I'm not the best. I want to learn more from Glo, from Dean Atienza, from Chippy, from everybody else. So I would love to have critiques. I would love to have comments and how we can improve it. Then we can have a second book. And in short, manganganak na manganganak yung libro hanggang meron tayong encyclopedia. And I would like to ask that it be uploaded online, at least, but maybe in chewable terms, because it may be too complicated. And so, since the enactment of the Climate Change Act in 2009, imagine it's been almost 10 years. When I wrote the bill in 2007, enacted into law in 2009, and operationalized years later. And the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act, which created the NDRIMC Council, of which the SND is the chair. And there's a sunset review, and there are bills now creating the Department of Resilience. But this would depend on the inputs of the SND, I would like to ask NDCP and the GSC to both comment, because there's a council and now there's a department. So we see which would be more effective. A strengthened council, which has all the relevant agencies, or a department which could duplicate the council, but which could also be a focused department on resilience. So these are important matters we should discuss that could even be the subject of another paper. Maybe the next NDCP class could study the bill spending in both the lower and the upper house in the Senate, and emanating from PMS, Office of the President, on the different versions of the department. Do we need the department at all? Or do we need a strengthened council with a bigger mandate and competent people to make it more effective? That's what the sunset review of the NDRIMC law is all about. And so I principally authored the Climate Change Act, which created the commission. Why are they not here? The three commissioners should be here. Okay. The problem sometimes with these agencies, during budget hearings, they line up, they're there, they wait 12 hours for their turn. But in important events like this, they're not here. Well, take note of those who are absent. But of course, SND is going to Russia, so he's excused. But the Climate Change Commission, they should be here. Okay? Yan. Nagagalit na, no? GP. Oh, ganyan. So, we've seen, I can say that we're far from accomplishing the tasks of being a resilient nation. But we have gained big strides compared to 20 years ago, even compared to 10 years ago, even compared to Ondoy. We've greatly improved. But because we're so vulnerable, there's still so much to be done. So, mainstreaming climate change adaptation and mitigation and disaster risk reduction and management into the different plans and programs of government continues to be a big challenge. So climate change is an important inclusion in military security planning. You ask me why? Bakit naman climate change? Ang dapat iplano natin. Paano ang Bangsamoro? How do we make it effective? The NPAs, the perennial insurgency has been there for many decades. The threat in the West Philippine Sea, on the boundaries with China. Those are the security threats. Why climate? Clearly, climate change is at the core of national security. Climate change is so important that it be included in our security planning because, for one, it accelerates conflict that contributes to instability and loss of harmony in various sectors. There is a need to know how resilient our armed forces of the Philippines is against the current and imminent risk environments, and to see how the armed forces can expand its traditional resilience framework to include CCAM and DREAM, DRRM, enhancing risk management and adding value to its sustainability and resilience building efforts. Look at what happened in Yolanda. Pag walang kuryente or walang access na daan, at hindi makatulong mismo ang mga pulis at militar, ang sarili nilang bahay at opisina ay naapektuhan or sila mismo ang namatayan. Patayin mo lang tong kuryenteng to o walang aircon o napakainit, or walang tubig. So basic environment, climate, and natural hazards that affect our daily lives would hinder our plans, our security planning. As a longtime advocate for environmental protection, and I've authored all the environmental laws you can think of from 1998, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Law, the Environmental Education Awareness Act, the Renewable Energy Law, the People's Survival Fund, amending the Climate Change Act, and many more. I believe that building resilience is a shared responsibility. It's not just the LGUs or the national government. In fact, the AFP should lead. Traditionally, the military's role in nation building has been perceived, at least, to be limited to upholding national security and humanitarian and disaster response, HADR. Di ba palagi, bigay ng bigas, ng tubig, ng gamot. Traditionally, tama yun, pero hindi po sapat yun. As key players in the humanitarian sphere, locally and internationally, the armed forces are now being progressively engaged in building resilient systems across all spaces to include CCAM, DRRM. As a former media practitioner, 20 years before the 20 years ago. So I joined the Senate 20 years ago, but I was in media 20 years earlier than that. So it's up to you to compute. I see the role of information as a vital element in ensuring the effectiveness and sustainability of reforms. Doing so basic and going down to the grassroots. You would remember in Southern Leyte, wala pang climate change law, wala pang NDRIM law. That was in 2005 or 6, ginsaugon, nung linamon ng bundok sa St. Bernard ang isang eskwelahan at mga bahay na namatay ang mga bata, magulang at guro. Because while there were early warnings at the time, or maybe not enough, the dissemination of information from Pag-asa in Central Manila to the region 8, to region, to province, to barangay, hindi na disseminate. Several days of rains, they should have known, dapat linikas yung tao, dapat in-evacuate yung DepEd school, but the information was not given. That was more than 13 years ago. And so deaths happened. And so information, not just in traditional media, but also in all forms, especially now with so much technology. But we don't even have to be high-tech. We can even be simple, like in Bangladesh, red flags. So where technology is not available, although the techies in our midst, I think the AFP, the DND, the NDCP, the GSC should collaborate with the DICT, the newly formed department, which I also co-authored, so that technology can be utilized, enhanced, and we can find technology to make sure every barangay in the country would have access to early warning devices and systems and knowledge so that they're informed. Because ignorance really kills. And Ginsaugon 13 years ago showed that. Or maybe, was it 13 years ago? Maybe 12 years ago. So that's so important. And when information or technology is not available, pag walang kuryente, walang text, hindi na charge ang mga cellphone, wala naman laptop, wala naman internet sa ibang lugar, we can go as low-tech as possible. It can be gongs, it can be red flags, it can be katok-katok system sa neighbor, pwedeng bato o pebble na tinatapon. It can even be the adoption of indigenous knowledge, whatever applicable. And so we should even work with the NCIP, National Commission on Indigenous People, so that the practices and rituals of indigenous peoples can be adopted in areas where technology is not available. Information, in whatever form, empowers the public to demand more from government. Because I want to elevate the level of involvement of the AFP in the nation-building process, the first step is to let the people know the important role of the AFP on this crucial issue of resilience in relation to CCAM, DRRM. Paano ba natin, Yusek Glo, simplify ito? CCAM, DRRM. SICAM, dream na lang ang tawagin natin, no? SICAM dream. Is it madali bang i-recall yan? Maybe we can have something to think. You can only communicate your plans to the public if the institution itself is certain and convinced of its expanded role. And this is what I meant, or what I wanted to achieve in this book, to emphasize the role of the Armed Forces of the Philippines as a partner in national development and security. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you today to launch my Command and General Staff Course research paper, turned into book, entitled The AFP in the Humanitarian Space, Building Resilience, Fostering Resilient Communities. This book is about codifying the relevance of military resilience building of the AFP as an institution, inclusion of SICAM and DREAM in the AFP's practice and governance framework, and fostering resilient communities in response to risks caused by climate change to the community and the environment. This emphasizes that building resilience not only means responding to threats brought about by climate change and natural hazards, but also involves reforms to strengthen the adaptability of institutional structures and systems. In this case, the AFP, in performing its expanded role in supporting national and local agencies, should pursue the objective of co-managing and building more resilient communities. Resilience as a concept is applied in making sense of how to respond to contemporary threats. Such response can be approached in different levels: individually, familial, institutional, national, regional, global, and locally. Because resilience is not inherent to communities and institutions, it needs to be developed and harnessed to ensure that threats are squarely addressed to prevent them from escalating into disasters. The military has a similar concept of resilience. The Australian Army defines resilience as, and I quote, "the capacity of individuals, teams, and organizations to adapt, recover, and thrive in situations of risk, challenge, danger, complexity, and adversity." The US Air Force defines resilience, and I quote, "as the ability to withstand, recover, and grow in the face of stressors and changing demands," unquote. For many years, I've looked for any work or document that defined resilience from the point of view of the Philippine military. While various statements issued by the Office of Civil Defense and the AFP referred to the need to build resilient communities, to the need to build resilient LGUs in the context of disaster risk reduction and management, the AFP HADR concept of operations, from my research, never really referred to resilience building as a key component of HADR strategies. We were more focused on response until of late. So this is one of the reasons why I selected this topic for my CGSC paper, and thank you for making me pass my course. As an AFP reservist, and at the same time appointed global champion for resilience by the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction many years ago, 10 years ago, I saw the need to put together my advocacies and my knowledge and my expertise as a global champion for resilience, and being in the military sector, and being a lawmaker and policymaker, and being a communicator. So all of that put together delivered this paper. I saw the need to have a concrete framework which will establish the link between the AFP and the national SICAM and DREAM efforts. I believe that the AFP's resilience as an institution is just as important as building resilience in communities. And you can find the detailed framework on chapter 2 of the book. And I would like to have the comments. So what I would like to see, that all LGUs would have a copy of this book. All the governors, all the mayors, all the vice mayors, city and towns, municipal mayors. And we would like to have their comments so that the concepts and policies and framework in the book, based on the paper, could be operationalized on the ground. Hindi ba maganda? Tayo ang naglalatag ng konsepto, nandiyan na. Pero lahat sila may kakaibahan mga stresses. Iba-ibang vulnerabilities eh. Iba-ibang rehiyon, iba-ibang probinsya, iba-ibang syudad, iba-ibang municipality. Coastal o bundok, rural, urban. Maski na sa urban, iba't ibang barangay, iba't ibang mga stresses. So, manganganak to ng iba't ibang mga papel, iba't ibang mga dokumento, iba't ibang operationalized on the ground. I would like to see detailed operational output from this book. What do I mean? Based on this, gagawa ang bawat probinsya, ang bawat military camp, ang bawat barangay pa-contest ng, itong application namin ng CCAM Dream Framework. Kailangan pala mag-environmental impact assessment o mag-soil testing sa lupa na actually ginagawa na. Or simplify, kailangan may water catchment o kailangan may ditches sa kanal sa kalsada dahil hindi ginagawa yan. O kailangan pala ang mangroves natin, paigtingin ang pagtatanim. Yung simple day-to-day things we take for granted can be operationalized based on the framework of this book. I also included in this book essential inputs in developing the proposed action agenda for building resilience and fostering resilient communities. First, adopting an AFP resilience scorecard that will provide a set of metrics upon which the AFP may base specific measures and actions it needs to achieve within a targeted time frame. Having this management tool will provide a benchmark for monitoring progress and prioritizing actions in terms of creating a more resilient AFP. Second, to develop a climate change adaptation and mitigation roadmap for the AFP, since climate change and its accompanying hazards have significant impacts on the infrastructure and operations of the military. Kung walang kuryente, sabihin na natin, may nagpasabog o may pumutol sa grid. Remember, the owner of our grid, 40% is China. Yes, is it more than 40? Yeah. They own NGCP, 40 or 60? 40, less than 50%. Yeah. I'm not saying they would do it. They could do it if they wanted to, right? So what do I mean? Embedded generation, distributed generation, microgrids, mini-grids would be more resilient than relying on the grid, on transmission lines. Look at the island province of Bohol. Bohol relies on its kuryente from Leyte. E nung na-ormok, yung naka-earthquake, wala silang kuryente rin. Galing pa sa ibang probinsya. Transmission lines are under the water. Paano pag bagyo? Di walang kuryente. So, resilient energy infrastructure is embedded generation. That's just a small example. So the AFP should follow suit with other military institutions in many other countries that have already recognized that climate change affects everyone and that their facilities and infrastructure are in the same way exposed to the dangers of climate change, which may result in mission vulnerabilities. Third, conducting a climate and disaster risk assessment on AFP installations is also imperative. Perhaps you've done that. All military camps, even Camp Aguinaldo, I hope we know our vulnerabilities and we have our risk assessment, not just in terms of threats from terrorists or internal threats, criminals, etc., but also against climate, energy, risks, floods. So this assessment on AFP installations is imperative, especially since there is an absence of an AFP-wide and integrated initiative to identify the effects of climate change and disaster impacts on the AFP. Let's say bridges and other infrastructure. What was the bridge that collapsed in Italy, in Genoa? Diba? Killed so much. So even the retrofitting and the assessment of bridges, not within or inside military installations, but from one to the other. Access from one to the other. What if just one Guadalupe Bridge just collapses? So, what are the alternate routes? C5, yes, the traffic will ensue. So all of that should be inputted in our risk assessments. This assessment should include the use of specific metrics and science-based data. Until now, I'm not sure if there is even a baseline survey to assess the risks of all the military installations. Has this been undertaken? I'm not sure. Despite the fact that disaster impacts on military installations have been experienced in various degrees all the years. This exposes the AFP and its facilities to unforeseeable risks, which the institution may not even be capable of dealing with. We're prepared, hopefully, for risks that we are traditionally known to fight against or prepare against. Terror, yes, I hope we're prepared. But natural hazard risks, flooding, heat wave, incessant rains, even the building code, fire, retrofitting of buildings, and I said the areas around it, bridges and roads, etc. So the lack of such assessment makes credible planning for different disaster scenarios difficult, if not impossible. Another recommendation is to develop an AFP climate and disaster resilience toolkit that would address the issue of the lack of a deeper understanding of the relationship among climate change, disaster risks, and national and human security. Do you already have a toolkit? None yet. We can do that, right? Did I fund it in this year's budget? I did. Oh, okay. So, Yusek Glo, you can lead the team that can do it. Okay, great. So this toolkit would also address the concerns that were raised during the limited reach of a comprehensive learning experience on these vital issues across the ranks of the AFP. In addition, this toolkit shall also address the need for improvement on the quality and depth of knowledge being imparted, since many of the pieces of information are just sourced sometimes from the internet. I hope that's not the case. Lastly, incorporating SICAM and DREAM in key guidance and planning documents like the AFP Transformation Roadmap and Defense Planning Guidance will also be crucial in achieving military resilience within the AFP. Given that the AFPTR is geared towards capability development and professionalization among all ranks, the inclusion of resilience building as an element of capability development would not only be relevant, but would also address the strategic nature of the AFPTR. In closing, I would like to present to you this book, which is a collaboration of many, many people who've helped me, including my office in research and the inputs given no less by the DND. I even conducted a Senate hearing on this and got the information from all of those who attended, which reminds me, all of those who attended and gave input should be given a copy of the book. So, hindi lang to naisip, ginawa ng papel para makapasa, hindi. This was pinag-aralan, kinonsulta ang CABSEC office, si Yusek Glo, ang NDCP, ang GSC, ang SND, ang DND, ang NIC, lahat. Ang daming ahensya ng gobyerno, even the non-military departments. In-input natin, at hindi, it will not remain ink on paper or a paper or a book in a library for a book launch and forget it, or a soft copy in a USB or an HD. It should be operationalized because we will have a toolkit. And this is, I think, the first study which is also funded. Eh, maswerte kasi naging chair ng finance ito. So, we funded, in fact, there's a 50 million allocation in the D&D, 75 million, yes, for resilience building within the AFP, and can be bigger even for next year, should you want it. The AFP has been and will always be there when the Filipino people need you. But in order to carry out its duties to the country more effectively, especially in times of calamities, the AFP must work towards raising the visibility of climate change in its policies, particularly in the AFPTR. Climate change must be considered in the formulation of the AFP's resilience plan and not just an incidental factor in assisting other agencies and the general public. A resilient AFP is a more effective AFP. Thus, it must also be able to look after itself and allow itself to first address its shortcomings in terms of institutional resilience so that it may perform its HADR operations, one of its many duties, more efficiently. Through this publication, I hope that the AFP will be guided on how we can work towards a resilient, dependable, and capable armed forces. I am ever grateful to the NDCP and the General Staff College and to the Alumni Association for your support, and the CABSEC office, USEC Law, for supporting me in this book. And I hope that this is just the beginning. We will have the Center for Defense Studies. We will have more publications, and it would be good if we could really simplify and operationalize this book and transform it from policy to do, a toolkit that's to do, that will be understood up to the barangay, even purok or sitio level. And then we can evolve into a more resilient AFP that can guide and help more resilient LGUs and communities and become a more resilient nation. Thank you very much. Congratulations to our class, our silver jubilarians, headed by Chippy and Glo. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Senator